Hi all and welcome to the final version of From Russia with Love 8C, and welcome to the triality of it. And this, as I said, will be the third and final part of From Russia with Love 8, so pin back your ears and tune into the frequency, and of course get ready for some brain cell rearrangement. It's time to think and act different, and is much needed in today's modern times. From Russia with Love 8A revealed much about Eastern religions, New Age practices and worshipping of fake gods, and also how the harvesting system worked. From Russia with Love 8B revealed the hidden hand, under all the names we are familiar with as part of the control system, and all came under the umbrella of the Order of the Black Sun. As the line in a famous song says, and you know sometimes words have two meanings, becomes more prevalent in this series. If you don't have an understanding of the words, how can you understand life and its meaning? Tonight's show will go a bit deeper into the themes of those shows and connect some more dots that reveals off-world connections again, the folly of the New Age, and also the naivety, folly or underhandedness of those in the alternative media. Which of those three is your choice to make? This will then set us up for the final From Russia with Love Part 9, which will bring much clarity to not only the alt media people, but it will also be addressed to the so-called leaders, heads of state, military and agency people around the world of real disclosure. This is all playing out now and all can see it, but maybe not understand it, and why it is important for the From Russia with Love series is spread far and wide. To that end, once a different From Russia with Love 9 is completed, and it is underway, I will then assemble a THI From Russia with Love book club, and we will work on it, and we will produce that book. Hi all, and welcome to the THI show. My name's Thomas Williams, and that was Sirius and Eye in the Sky, the all-seeing eye. So this first section is Let's Get Serious, and in this section I want to focus on one particular star system and their largely negative input on this world of ours. That star system is called Sirius. Now the Sirius connection and some of the darkness from there is often overlooked in favour of the Draco and Orion systems, but this group played a bigger role than most realise. The cat, the reptile and the fish people, as they are called, all came from there. In the last episode we spoke about the shepherd who found a meteorite in the desert. That meteor or stone at the Mecca came from there, as did the Black Knight satellite spacecraft observed in our skies, and also the Centenary stones also comes from Sirius. The black stone and the subsequent black cubes dotted all around the world, the most prominent being in Mecca and New York, are all energy harvesting the people who dared to get close to or worship in those items. Throughout history, it is said that the Syrians had given pieces of Centenary to some of those individuals who had the maximum potential for positive influence on the human history. King Solomon, Alexander the Great and Akbar were in possession of a piece of that stone. All fell. Now the story relayed to me of King Solomon was that he was designated as a worker directly for Source, and he fell and ended up dancing with and for the dark. The temple of sacrificing humans and animals was all built for Solomon on what they then called the demons Today we know them by the term jinns. The popular song by David Bowie hinted at this, called Genie, as in jinn or the genie. They are the same entities made popular of the genie in the lamp or the bottle, who came out of either in a cloud of smoke, which is their real appearance, and manifested into an Egyptian or Arabian person. The genie then granted you 3 wishes, which is a spell cast, and that was the seducement. And once the first wish is manifested, essentially the person is now in contract and bound to the dark and that particular jinn. A common tactic they used on humans unaware of their own manifest abilities or awareness of this, of what is still largely secret occultic knowledge. Now, prior to building the temple, Solomon was given a ring to do the magic, of which he subsequently asked a child to do the task, before trying it out himself. Nice chap he was, using the child to deflect the karma and do his dirty work, and it's symbolic of what has happened to humanity, really. That ring is now held by the Rothschild family, real name Bauer. Rothschild is a title, like Moses and also Ra. And the question to ponder is, or was, the Rothschilds the Lord of the Ring? But the great questions are, did Solomon receive the centenary stones before the ring? And was it that stone that corrupted him before the ring? Later this same piece of stone was given to a certain Templar group near Untersberg, and then onto the Vril girls. They then formed a Templar group called the Lords of the Black Stone, to become the guardians of the stone and the keepers of the goddess Vortex, the Black Stone, and the goddess, which is Isis. Another group out of Sirius is called the Dogon, also known in different cultures as Dagon and Dagon, known as the fish people, which is why the Catholic Church has the symbol of the fish. Said to be about Jesus, it's not, and the bishops wearing the fish hats is confirmation of this. Now, the group who disseminated the centenary stones were known as the Phoenix Group, which just so happens to be the name of a CIA project of torture in Vietnam. Are you connecting the dots yet? Now, the legend of the phoenix that rises out of the ashes, it is said, that consumes itself by fire and is reborn, which is eerily reminiscent of the fire altar sacrifices to me, and the subsequent avatars or new bodies of the so-called gods, like Vishnu, Shiva and Marduk did in ancient times, and also Marduk this past decade, until his demise. Now, the phoenix bird story, it should come as no surprise to those who have listened to this series, came out of Egypt, said to have resembled the Bennu bird. Now, according to Egyptian mythology, the Bennu was a self-created being. Self-created? That's on a par with the virgin birth levels of nonsense, that to me. And is said to have played a role in the creation of the world, just like the Anunnaki making out they created us. They never. They just made us act like them. Now, it's said to be the Ba, which is the soul, of Ra. So Baal, which is a title, means Ra, the soul or solar god, and enabled the creative actions of Atum. Now, in the New Kingdom, artwork shows the Bennu as a grey heron with a long beak and two feathered crests. Grey is reference to the sub-grey, is it not? Sometimes perched on a ben stone, which is representing Ra, or in a willow tree representing Osiris. So the ben stone is the peak stone of a pyramid and is also said to represent the obelisk. And so we're back to worshipping Osiris's penis again. Now, Osiris was depicted as a green-skinned deity. Does that sound human to you? Now, Centenary is also the sacred stone of the Brotherhood of the Star. And the Brotherhood of the Star is the planetary outpost of the Blue Lodge of Sirius. Now remember, blue being the colour of the ET programs. Blue Beam, Blue Book, Blue Brethren, Blue Avery, Blue Bird, which was the program that preceded the MK Ultra. And Blue Lodge is also a reference to Freemasonry and also described as a Mandala of the 144,000. Another less known product of Sirius designed to corrupt everything here that wraps in witchcraft, paganism, Wiccan and the New Age program is called the Scarlet Sisterhood, an extremely dark-based group of females from Sirius who operated in covens that were heavily present and prevalent during the Orion Wars. Now remember, 9 of the last 10 parents were females. Most of the heads of the covens were also females. And that is not said to denigrate females, but the propensity is to believe most of the dark on this world is male-based. But that then negates the other half of the problem. Now, people like myself included have a great difficulty believing women would go that dark. But sadly, they have all the propensity to be just as dark as men, and in some cases worse. And it is a psychological barrier we must all overcome to address the problem. The story of the angels coming down and mating with earth women. The women then proceeded with these so-called angels to eliminate the earth men in favour of these angels or gods. That guilt in the female archetype is still carried by their souls today, as I understand it, and is an unaddressed trauma. And if you don't address it, it perpetuates and the cycle continues. Well, the Orion Wars just mentioned seem to be the origin of the dark groups and doctrines that we have here now on Earth. But Sirius, Alphaeon, Betelgeuse, Altair, a few of the planets that have been part of our off-world history brought here and made as if ours. Alphaeon in the distant past were the guardians here and sold us out for tech with the reptilian group. Their representative here was supposed to fix things, not distribute Sirius stones and worship goddesses. As I understand it, those goddesses have all been banned from returning here or interfering with events here due to, it is felt, they created most of the mess here. Now, the Orion Nebula has been the base of a joint reptilian grey empire called the Unholy Six, and there are 6 different dark groups of species working together in an effort to sabotage the human presence in this solar system. Now, discussions with those 5 or 6 groups to fix the mess they created here has been ongoing, particularly since 2013, and largely has been going well outside of here. But their representatives on here not so well, whether naivety, interference, ignorance or arrogance is responsible for that, and time will tell. These various ET species who are envious of this creation and wanted to compete with it, to put themselves between us and Source and Prime Creation itself, which they have been successful with via religion and programming. Now, one of the things that is unique to this creation is the ability to travel anywhere. And I'm not talking about travelling in tin cans either. By location, or like the transporter in Star Trek, the ability to transfer your consciousness and molecules to any location in this universe or the multiverse. This is unique to this creation, once you have worked enough on yourself. Now, the error I feel in hindsight is other creations should have been given the ability or goal to work towards, to do, or have the same capabilities. Because this led to envy and brought in the genetics-based program of how to piggyback on this creation. The unholy six, Orion Draconian Empire, had dark magic practitioners working with them, and a few of the names we have here for these groups are the Cult of the Black Sun, Var Jesuits, which are Vatican vampires, Rosicrucians, Starfire Illuminati Coven, the Thothian Hermetic Sects, the Brotherhood of the Snake, and the priests and priestesses of what we call here the Rose, the Scarlet Sisterhood and the Scarlet Brotherhood. These Rose or Scarlet Syrian Sisterhood of Dark Magic teamed up with a few species of male humanoids and the Brotherhood of the Snake, Draco, who shared their goal to play God in order to subvert their life force energies for their use. In a free will universe, you can only do that by making others believe they were God or God's representation on earth. And this is how the original teachers became priests and priestesses. All are world religions, a word which means to bind the mind, are the results of these off-world darky ET species' intentions for us. To not believe in ourselves and always need an external power structure or source, which was them. God in any of the Abrahamic triad doctrines is a Draco Reptilian. That is your Lord. Angels are distortions of dark inverting to false light, reversing. In a circus hall of mirrors, labyrinth of fourth form cages, these dark groups have designed for us, unless we think and act outside of the box. None can have power over us if we know better, and the answers are all within if you look. Of that I can assure you. This was how all the Allied Dark came to begin their design of the Earth prison planet, as they would have us think it was meant to be. It was never meant to be that way. the AI matrix being planned then by Anu, Yahweh, same entity. It was to be perpetuating energetic harvest net of thought-formed beliefs that allowed the self-serving dark to create pocket realms within creation, the false light traps, leading to astral layers that siphoned energy off of the other species in between lifetimes. Now, the Sirius star system is archaeologically heavily linked to Earth. The Great Pyramid in Egypt has air shafts that are energy balancing or discordant energy portals that align and link to the previously mentioned homeworlds of the Dark Agenda groups. But even before Egypt, the Dark Syrian sisterhoods and brotherhoods were boots on the ground, present on Earth in the times of Lemuria ending and Atlantis beginning. In Atlantis, these two mystery schools worked cooperatively. However, nearer to the time of the fall of Atlantis, this relationship took on a different, more competitive and combative pattern. And the major point of conflict was the contractual arrangement made on Sirius, the blue planet as it's called, prior to the Atlantean embodiment, and this contract was called the Rose Covenant. Now, this is an excerpt from an ancient Hermetic book, Hermetic as in Thoth, Hermes. And for those who wish to know who Thoth is on the hieroglyphs, he's the parrot-faced git, called Liber Al on the Scarlet Sisterhood. Now, Liber was a Roman god and known as the Free One. So, Liber Al means the free god. Hence the modern term liberal, which means they are free to talk shit. Now ye shall know that the chosen priest plus apostle of infinite space is the priest prince, the beast, and in his woman called the Scarlet Woman is all power given. They shall gather my children into their fold, they bring the glory of the stars into the hearts of men. I suspect that this Scarlet Woman may well be known as the Red Queen, one of the last two parents, and she's quite a spiteful little bitch, that woman. Unable to come in here now due to the frequencies, but occasionally sends VI representations of herself, but it's not real. There are other references to the beast. For example, the religion designed to get humanity to guilt, shame and blame themselves for natural sensual acts, to make us get into serious sex magic with the hypersexualization of humanity via tantric practices. But even more evidence of the Thothian dark priests and the Naga Magi covens, along with the dark Syrian sisterhood, Scarlet or Rose sisterhood, and the Brotherhood of the Snake teaming up to implement their spiritual worship mind binds called religia, which means religion. As the false gods, demons or priests and priestesses or nuns here, all of which are considered direct intermediaries between us and Source, and sadly, we let it happen. The Sirius mystery. This tradition is sometimes also referred to as the Great Tradition, the secret doctrine Blavatsky, and the cult of ISIS are all history mashups of Sirius's planetary history on our own world civilizations. From Egypt's cult of ISIS to the Dogon Nomos, which is where the Disney movie Nemo originates from, talking fish. Also not a coincidence is that the void doctrine, the dark tradition, is also called the same. Void doctrine and void meditation are one and the same program. Sothis is the ancient Egyptian name for Sirius, as spelled by the ancient Greeks. So they and Sothestai are Greek words used in the New Testament to mean saved and salvation, as in the Gospel of Mark and Luke. The boogeyman and the saviour program, all played by the same people or the same beings. Now this is or was, in some cases, wormhole technology that linked directly between Earth and Mars and onto Sirius, and was used frequently by the SSP. And for those new, know the SSP are not good in any way, shape or form. They have done much damage here, including controlling the US Navy, Norfolk, Virginia, Whidley Bay and Wright-Patterson are their main strongholds in America, but New Zealand is their biggest base. Now those from Orion used portal wormhole technology, and the Earth-Mars wormhole connection is artificial. It is man-made, unlike the ancient natural wormholes that link universes like the Orion Nebula. An Earth-Mars man-made portal was created and opened in the 1950s in the Montauk Project. The Mars underground city is also connected via a wormhole with a planet in the Sirius B system, where there are also a few human elements present at this time. The Mars wormhole, with its connections to Sirius A, was cheating the quarantine system set up to supposedly protect Earth and the life on it, and that was dealt with sometime in this past decade. The dark magic Syrian sisters who joined up with the men who wanted to play God, all our parents and dark magic covens that were here were directly from the dark Syrian sisterhood abuse and control teachings. Now, one of the words mentioned earlier was the Mandalas, often used in spiritual, so-called spiritual teachings. But the Mandala is a ritual-based geometric configuration of symbols that is used in Hinduism, Buddhism, Hebrewism and Jainism, and also Tibet. Now in the book of Revelation, the saying, "Do not harm the earth or the seas or the trees until we have sealed the servants of God on their foreheads." So what is this seal? Well, in Revelation it tells us it is in the forehead of the 144,000. Oops. And it is the name Yahweh written on the forehead. So where have we just heard of the mark on the forehead? This perception is what the initiated black sun seer signifies. We cover this in 8b, by putting a black spot on his forehead between his eyes, just like the Indian people following the Kali Ma and the Dark Lords Shiva and Vishnu. And as for the 144,000, that is another Jewish Hebrew terminology. And the Bible defines a special seal for the 144,000, which is 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes of Israel, which is actually the houses of Israel, not tribes, who led the reunification of Israel in the last days. But what people are missing is this is not referring to the country of Israel. It never existed prior to 1948, but the house of Israel. The zodiacs, the stars, are called the houses. The houses then came to earth. Pharaoh means the great house. Now, other religions or movements associated with the 144,000 are the Mormons. No surprise there, given their whole religion was based on fake Egyptian plates and the worship of Ra. And the Unification Church, founded by the Reverend Sun Myung Moon, known as the Moonies, who he said was given a message from Jesus to spread the message of the new Israel throughout the world. Sanat Kumara and the Lords of the Flame also brought 144,000 souls with them from Venus, home of Lucifer. Sanat Kumara appears as a rishi in the Hindu religious texts in the Chandogya Upanishad, which is a shrine to Sanat Kumara, which attracts and unites people of all religions and faiths, it is said, and it's situated in the town of Kathar Ragama in Sri Lanka. The Raelian movement, whose symbol was a swastika embedded into the six-pointed star. So as you can see, all the 144,000 are wrapped into the same religious constructs, which we exposed in earlier shows: the Hebrew, Jewish, Hinduism, Buddha and Jainism, plus the connections to Sri Lanka. But perhaps this next piece is the real connection to the 144,000. Having already covered extensively of what were the purposes of the so-called built temples of not only Solomon and Herod, but also Angkor Wat. All temples are sacrificial buildings or references to them. If Holly and Michelle can post the mandala, please. Now, in the scriptures, it mentions the massacre of the innocents, whereby the slaying of all children 2 years old or younger was designated by King Herod, the king of the Jews. And according to Coptic sources, that figure of the slain was 144,000. Now, the sand painting showing the Buddha Mandala, which those of you on MeWe and Facebook may be able to see now, which is made as part of the death rituals among Buddhist Nuars of Nepal. Death rituals on a mandala. It's supposed to be about peace and enlightenment. Now, in the mandala, the outer circle of fire usually symbolizes wisdom, but not the kind of wisdom I would quantify as being useful. And the ring of 8 charnel grounds is an above-ground site for the putrefaction of bodies, generally human, where formerly living tissue is left to decompose uncovered, represents the Buddha's exhortation to be always mindful of death and the impermanence with which samsara is suffused. Such locations were utilized in order to confront and to realize the transient nature of life. Described elsewhere, within a flaming rainbow nimbus and encircled by a black ring of dorjes, which is a weapon used as a ritual object to symbolize both the properties of a diamond, indestructibility, and a thunderbolt, irresistible force. And this refers to a weapon of the Godhead. And the major outer ring depicts the 8 great charnel grounds to emphasize the dangerous nature of human life. Now, inside these rings lie the walls of the Mandala palace itself, specifically a place populated by deities and Buddhas, the chosen ones. But does this all sound like love, peace and light or enlightenment to you? Or does it resemble exactly the type of morbid death ceremony laid out in the last show? Following the milk of ocean and their elixir ceremony that involves semen, menstruation blood and a human corpse. I fail to see how this Buddhist tradition is enlightenment. Now, samsara is sometimes referred to with terms or phrases such as transmigration, karmic cycle, reincarnation, and cycle of aimless drifting, wandering, or mundane existence. And with regards to the Godhead weapon, this is eerily familiar with the rod, stick, or staff that Draco had in their possession until 2014-2015 time zone. That stick had the capabilities to be a star maker or star breaker, and which is kind of referenced and runs concurrent with the Dyson sphere in the last episode. Another reference which connects these religions of the East and the Hebrew religion, which came out of the East from India. The term Godhead is the reference to the God of the Jewish people, which is Yahweh. Ricky, don't lose that number. It's all in the numbers. A hexagon contains the 6-pointed star, hex 830. American English from Pennsylvania German hexe, which means to practice witchcraft. From the German hexen, to hex, related to hexe, which is witch. From the Middle High German hexi, or from Old High German hagazusa, which also means hag. So haggardly woman means witch. The noun meaning magic spell, first recorded in 1909, but earlier hex meant witch, 1856. So hex is a curse, a transcendent force or energy used for malevolent purposes, using an unseen channel to do harm. And in Western tradition, it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Be careful what you think and what you say. And a prediction of an event due to a strong belief in the outcome. Now, unseen and channel are interesting terms to look at. Unseen is the jinns. The channel is the connection, and brings in a once popular theme until some decided to reveal the truth on it, called channeling. The practice of channeling, whereby a person's body is being taken over by a spirit for the purpose of communication. Oh dear. Here come the walk-ins. And that has been around for millennia. And there are countless stories of shaman, witch doctors, prophets and others who claim to hear voices or receive some supernatural knowledge from the spirit world. Now, channelers are also sometimes known as psychic mediums and often use what are called the spirit guides. Friendly spirits who gave them knowledge and helped them on their spiritual journeys, it is said. But who says they are or were friendly? How can you determine if there are one way or another with little to no knowledge about these entities or their planes of existence? And yet again, people base things on an incorrect assumption that people in certain positions know what they're doing and what they're saying, when the reality becomes more clear by the day that humanity in and of itself is largely ignorant on all levels. Now, the shamans will tell you it's okay, because most of them now are more interested in taking money off unsuspected spiritual seekers, and therein lies the problem. Now, to achieve this expanded state of consciousness, it is said, channelers usually meditate, trying to break free of worldly influences and tune into a higher consciousness. Except the astral layer, where these spirits reside, mainly, is a far lower form of consciousness than exists even in our low-level physical realm. Oops. They may imagine themselves seeking out specific spirits of the dead, or they may be contacted, apparently unbidden, by some unknown force that wishes to communicate. And yes, they all wish to communicate, and most are for nefarious purposes. And once those spirits are in, remember, they've taken over the vessel, they are difficult to remove. And this channeling is also done via the voice-to-head technology also, which we've covered recently. And the Syrians and the Greys were instrumental in that field. Look at the problems we face with these invading spirits and walk-ins. You can't go to a doctor or hospital and ask, can I have my walk-in removed? Because very few on this planet are aware of this issue, outside of those who work with and use the entities for malevolent purposes. And you have to understand there are many species who wish to enter this vessel, and it's something we are criminally negligent in grasping or understanding. A spirit vessel trapped in the astral realm can only feed on us via energy. And all of those spirits are desperate to gain a body again. And the only way they can do that is by a host on the physical plane inviting them in. So the hexagon has 6 sides, 6 angles, and if you add another 6 of the triangles, it becomes 666 number of man, when actually it is just 6. So the hexagon first had 6 sides, and if you draw a line down the middle north to south, it is an inverted copy of each other, symbolizing the mirror. Then came the angles intersecting the 6 sides. When connected up, it becomes the Star of David. 6 sides, 6 angles, 6 triangles. The symbolic triangle up and the triangle down, with both straight edges as one, and so the upper part sits on top of the lower part. So 2 triangles is 6 sides, the perfect union of man and woman, which is then shaped like a diamond. Put a triangle on the top and invert it one below, it turns into 4 sides and a diamond. Now the upper is the male symbol, the lower is the female symbol. As above, so below, the perfect union of masculine and feminine, which is shaped as a diamond. Now what is used for the union of man and woman via a wedding? A diamond. Now the scriptures all speak of the fall of man, and then it was said to be the fall of man. Well, man as represented by the top triangle, if man falls halfway down the female triangle, you are left with the 6-pointed star. What caused the fall of man? Was it the fallen angels, or was it the fallen angles? The fallen angles of the union done by the fallen angels of Lucifer. Holly and Michelle, can you post the second piece, please? For those new, Lucifer was actually a female, not a man, and is known as Luciferia. Go and check at the bottom of the Baal document, which reveals that further. It's linked with the moon and sin, and also Gaia, the Mother Earth, which was actually Lilith. Also linked with Venus, the light bringer. But Venus was female. In between the 4-pointed perfect union and the 6-pointed fall of man is the 5, the pentagram, used by witchcraft, but also the symbol of the Baphomet, half man, half goat, and a chimera. The pentagram with the node pointed up is the symbol of the elementals that is supportive of life, fire, air, water, earth, and spirit or ether. The pentagram with the node pointing down is the symbol of anti-life and is overlaid by the Baphomet. The Baphomet is the symbol of Kabbalah and the tree of Darth, which is the tree of death. And it was an Illuminati symbol and was heavily worshipped by the Templars, which then morphed into and took over the mystery schools, the secret societies, the brotherhoods and the fraternities. The Templars also morphed into Freemasons. Most of the police forces in the UK and USA are Freemasons. But the brotherhood term again, or the fraternity, is a link back to what we mentioned earlier. And the badges for the police force and the sheriffs, in case you didn't notice, are all shaped into 6-pointed stars. With the American sheriff badge has the added secret symbol incorporated into the badge, showing 6 triangle loops, which is also the symbol for child pedophilia and boy lover on their badges. Oh my. So let's look at hexagon again and break the word down. Hex, to practice witchcraft and create a curse using an unseen channel. And that channel is the jinns, which translates into demon or Satan. Which church has the symbol of the Baphomet on its logo? The Church of Satan. So the demon or Satan is represented as the Baphomet. Now the second part of the word is agon. Agon means conflict. So essentially what is playing out here on an esoteric level between the 4, which is the diamond, and 6, which is the hex, is an unseen channel of 5, which is witchcraft, to bring in via a channel, to then bring in the demons via the curse or spell, creating the hex. Witchcraft, light and dark, creates the channel or portals for these entities to come through. So the 5 drew the pentagram to create the curse imposed by the demons. The hex, the curse, had an agon, the conflict, competition with man, which is 6, and they hexed, cursed man and overlaid it with the demons, and the agon, which is conflict, became agony for man. Five is also represented as the tetragrammaton, the Hebrew name for God, whose country have the 6-pointed star as their symbol, signifying the fall of man. Ring of Solomon, who brought in the demons, has the same 6-pointed star on the ring, now worn by the Rothschilds, although it has also recently claimed to be in possession of the Australian tribe, who say they are descendants of Solomon and the 13th tribe of Israel, who are laced into Rosicrucianism, which is a derivative of the Sisterhood of the Rose, and brought in the Draco Empire here. Now, for those who don't know, the rose is actually a symbol for Anu, the Draco King. Our sign for peace is the letter V, and it's pointing down. Just like the Spock Kabbalah symbol, V is also the symbol for the number 5, which is the dark symbol for Satanism. It is all inverted, as you can now see. Just like the mirror, it has to be seen from both sides. Viewing one side of a mirror gives you only one side of the story, and presents an image, image, an artificial representation that looks like a person or thing, which stems from the word imitari, which means to copy, imitate, likeness or statue. In other words, they are telling you it is not the real thing or the original. Another word pertaining to mirrors, and why am I not surprised? Catoptrix, pertaining to mirrors or a mirror. Oops, there goes the girding again. Mirror linked to image derives from icon, I-con, and idol, I-doll. I con you and I am a doll, hence not real. Another word derived from mirror is sky. The Gothic skugwa means mirror, from the Pi root skew, which means to cover, conceal. The question would be, what is it concealing? And if the sky is the mirror, what is the reflective surface conduit that creates that effect? In the 7 days of creation story we get this, and God said, let there be a vault between the waters to separate water from water. So God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above it. As above, so below. And it was so. And God called the vault sky. Water on the planet, water in the sky, known as the firmament, which would then create the reflection, or the sky becomes a mirror. Firmament literally means a support, a strengthening. Now they say in superstitions, which we found out is also part of the mirror magic, that smashing a mirror, they say, is bad luck. And this mirror magic and time was also linked to a jail term of a Hebrew slave. They served 6 years in prison and is released on the 7th year. How long does smashing a mirror bring bad luck? 7 years. An ancient myth was that mirrors have magical powers, including the power to see the future, and are thought to be devices of the gods. Thus, breaking a mirror would terminate its powers. The soul would be astray from the body, and misfortunes would be brought upon the one whose reflection it last held. So where did this fear-based myth all come from? Well, no surprise, the land of fear-based rhetoric, Rome. It was the Romans who tagged to the broken mirror as a sign of 7 years bad luck. Now, the length of the prescribed misfortune came from the ancient Roman belief that it took 7 years for life to renew itself, and that was fear porn on steroids. And the real reason they came up with that fear rhetoric is because it shatters their illusion, not ours. In the Bible, the number 6 symbolizes man and human weakness, the evils of Satan, and a manifestation of sin. Man was created on the 6th day. Men were appointed to labour for 6 days. A Hebrew slave was to serve 6 years and released in the 7th. 6 years were appointed for the land to be sown and harvested, And the number 6 is also associated with Satan in his temptation of Jesus, which is not a real name. The bringing together of the 3 number 6s is the number, and the mark of the end-time beast of Revelation as such, and it represents the very best system of governance that mankind can produce without God, and under the constant influence of his chief adversary. But man's system on earth is made up of 3 parts: economic, religious and governmental. All 3 are corrupt, all of which are influenced and led by Satan. When 666 is multiplied by the 7, it equals 4,662, which depicts man's total imperfection under Lucifer, or Luciferia, the correct name. When added across, 4 plus 6 plus 6 plus 2 equals 18, and 18 is divided by 3 is 6. What if mythology is real? Is the next chapter. Many people are said to not believe in this particular entity. And why are so many churches around the world, high-profile sculptures and paintings, plus the hieroglyphs in Egypt and other places, all depicting a male or female with goat-looking or cloven feet? Look at the hieroglyphs in Egypt. Hardly any depict a human male or female. They have elongated heads. But if that was a version of human, why do we not see those people now? And where did they all go? Why did so few ask the question of who are these beings with bird heads, crocodile, cat, dog, or in the case of India, half serpent? Do these people all have a vivid imagination, or like doing fancy dress? Or are these beings real? But too few ask the obvious questions when it's all there right in front of our faces. Strange beings, half man, half animal, reptile or serpent, beings with multiple arms. Where are these beings now is the great question. And where are the skeletal remains? These are all known as chimera, half man, half beast in most cases. But they also came in 2 animal forms as well throughout every culture and civilization around the world, and was written up by many of the bards and passed off as mythology. Flying elephants to fire-breathing dragons, minotaurs and centaurs, and yet curiously in the literary world of Darwinism and natural evolution, we never see their skeletons or the equivalent descendants of those species. Perhaps the great question to ponder is, maybe it never happened on the physical plane, but on one of the other planes of existence. But the problem arises here is people ask for certain things and yet don't see it in front of their face. The Egyptian hieroglyphs is ET disclosure, and yet people still ask for it. Green-skinned deities, blue-skinned deities. talking crocodiles. That's your ET disclosure in visual form. Now, given what I know, that all living things that have gone extinct on the physical plane all reside in the astral plane. But was there a merging of all the planes in the past, and a subsequent separation of them that followed? Is it any coincidence that in Egypt and India, all their ceremonies are about worshipping, idolising, celebrating the dead, and their supposed crossing? Ra, Rahu, Ketu, Vishnu, Shiva, etc. Catholic, Muslim and other religions are all the same, with Jesus and Allah. Melchizedek. Jewish Hebrew with Yahweh. But if these were all human and residing here as we are told, does anyone ask, where are they buried? Do they ask why many of them were born on December the 25th to a virgin, died and was reborn and ascended to heaven 3 days later? All had 12 people alongside them, all declared the Son of God. I mean, come on. 28 different beings, all with the exact same story? It is statistically impossible in ordinary everyday life, but far too universally accepted via non-thinking people, all wrapped into a mind-controlled experiment called religion. Let's think about it logically here, shall we? But if Holly, Michelle, Amy, Ramona, Stephanie, the two Sharons, Emma, Kim, Adele, Marjoline, Perla, Gail, Willow, Nancy, Gemma, Catherine, Pam Joni, Bridget, Myra, Mary, Rosetta, Kelly, Jessica, Karen, Sue and Slavika, to take a sample of the female names out of THI, all got pregnant tomorrow and all claim to have not slept with anyone. Would you believe it or them? Of course you wouldn't. You would all turn round and say, virgins, yeah, right. Do you think they're stupid? And yet this program keeps running with the most unbelievable conspiracy theories ever, and too few questions are asked of it. And all of it based on old scriptures. No one knows who wrote them. Only assume. But assumption's not fact or truth. Assumption is logic and reason, and neither of those are the truth either. And is all based on statistic probability. So what is the statistic probability of all those THI women giving birth the same day whilst being virgins? Now the familiar goat's head inside an inverted pentagram did not become the foremost symbol of Satanism until the founding of the Church of Satan in 1966. And yet the original goat pentagram containing the Hebrew letters at the 5 points of the pentagram spelling out Leviathan first appeared in the book La Clef de la Magie Noire by the French occultist Stanislas de Guatia back in 1897. But perhaps the name Levi followed by Athon is indicative here. Athan is a Greek name and means immortal. So Leviathan is the Levi family are immortal. The Levi family were famous or infamous for the majority of the slave ships, as we revealed in From Russia with Love 4 or 5. But this symbol was later used in Morris Betty's book, A Pictorial History of Magic and the Supernatural, with the words Samael and Lilith removed. No surprise they removed Lilith. The Kali Ma. Now the symbol is also prevalent with the order of the Trapezoid, which is a chivalric order of knighthood dedicated to the Prince of Darkness, and the protection of the Black Flame. There's that black again. Colour-coded program. And the order was first formally introduced by Anton LaVey in the December 1970 issue of the Church of Satan's newsletter, The Cloven Hoof, where it was described as the board of directors and security staff of the church. Now, the idea of what the order signified morphed at various times, always with a focus on its vital role as caretaker of the hidden tradition, behind the visible tradition exemplified first by the Church of Satan and later by the Temple of Set. Setan. The order of the Trapezoid was finally given a definitive and definite form by Dr. Michael Aquino, who was the High Priest of Set in 1982 and took its place as one of the three oldest still extant orders or areas of specialization under the leadership and teaching of a Grand Master within the Temple of Set. Aquino is one of the most evil people or entities you'll ever meet. And in its formative years, this particular version of the symbol was utilised by the church on membership cards, stationery, medallions, and most notably above the altar in the ritual chamber of the Black House. Black House, Black Flame, Black Stone, all connected to the order of the Black Sun. The Ouroboros, something we've mentioned fairly regular in our shows, as clowns seem to like that Ouroboros program. Known as the serpent eating its own tail, and its first known appearance of the Ouroboros as a motif is in the enigmatic book of the Netherworld, which is an ancient Egyptian funerary text in KV 62, the tomb of Tutankhamun. Not a coincidence. In the 14th century BC, the text concerns the actions of the god Ra and his union with Osiris in the underworld. The Ouroboros is depicted twice on the figure, holding their tails in their mouths, one encircling the head and the upper chest, and the other surrounding the feet of a large figure, which may represent the unified Ra Osiris, which is Osiris born again as Ra. Now, both serpents are manifestations of the deity Mihen. Mihen, who worked with Set. And Mihen means the coiled one, just like the Kundalini, with a K again, who in other funerary texts protects Ra in his underworld journey. But if Ra was so great as certain alt-media clowns would profess, and the Lord of One, why is Ra going in the underworld? Oops. And it said the whole divine figure represents the beginning and the end of time. The Ouroboros appears elsewhere in Egyptian sources, where, like many Egyptian serpent deities, it represents the formless disorder that surrounds the orderly world and is involved in that world's periodic renewal. Now, the symbol persisted in Egypt into Roman times. Roman times? They were the same people or entities as why. When it frequently appeared on magical talismans, sometimes in combination with other magical emblems. Now, talisman is another object or word of magic, an object marked with magic signs, and is believed to confer on its bearer supernatural powers or protection. Something that apparently has magic power, believed to confer, and apparently are the key words there. Not is, but an assumption of what is. On the 4th century AD, Latin commentator Servius was aware of the Egyptian use of the symbol, noting that the image of a snake biting its tail represents the cyclical nature of the year. No, it doesn't. And the original depiction of it was its black and white halves, which may perhaps represent a Gnostic duality of existence, and is also similar to the Taoist yin and yang symbol, or Rahu and Ketu. And as we mentioned, Osiris as the reincarnated Ra, often seen in Egyptian hieroglyphs as the symbol of the Ankh. So why do we see that? Because the Ankh is the universal symbol of reincarnation and the symbol of worship for the sun god Ra, and his son Horus is why. And perhaps now you'll understand why Egyptologists and the great cover-up protector of fake Egyptian knowledge, Zahi Hawass, all speak in reverence to the great pharaoh Tutankhamun. So let's look at that closely, shall we? Because it's 3 words, not one. Tut Ankh Amun, which means King Tut reincarnated as Amun Ra. Tut Moses means King Tut under the title of Moses. Don't know how many Tut Moses, there's about 3 or 4, memory serves me correctly. Can't all be called Moses unless it's a title, which it is. And they often speak of the boats of the gods travelled on into the next world. But what they are really saying is the pirates on the boat took over a new vessel and operated it. So their version of reincarnation is a symbol of a walk-in, known as an avatar, and the possession of a host body on the physical plane. Now, in the past, the removal of said walk-ins or spirits was done by an exorcist, whose original term, exorcist, meant a conjurer or magician. And the cycle continues. The pirates of the sea, like another of their known names, Mari, spelt with an I, which means star of the sea, and where the term maritime came from. Morally means the same as Mari, sea pirate. Mari was also the name of a city or a state in Babylonia as well, populated with several canals and the links to the water again, which we covered in earlier shows. And this is why it's called the papacy. Papa is father, sea, father of the sea. This next chapter is called Prey, or Are You the Prey? Philip Kozlowski, who is a Christian-based writer, wrote this piece on October the 12th in 2017, which fits rather well. Praying is an ancient tradition with deep symbolism, and the real reason we fold our hands in prayer has a much deeper symbolism. In fact, the tradition has its roots in the customs of many of the ancient cultures. In the Jewish tradition, there is evidence in the Talmud that some prayed with hands folded as early as the post-exilic period, and even continued after Christianity was established. And some historians believe that the Christians adapted this custom from their Jewish heritage. Oops. All religions came out of the Jewish Hebrew heritage is why, which is all connected to the Draco division of the Anunnaki, who are known as the chosen ones. Another common belief it is the hands folded posture was derived from a Roman practice symbolizing submission. Indeed, religious historians have traced the gesture back to the act of shackling a prisoner's hands with a vine or rope. Joined hands became to symbolize submission. That's a nice holy gesture, that, is it not? And in ancient Rome, a captured soldier would avoid immediate death by joining the hands together, just like waving a white flag today. The message was clear: I surrender. Centuries later, subjects demonstrated their loyalty and paid homage to their rulers by joining the hands. In time, clasping the hands together communicated both an acknowledgement of another's authority and one's own submission to that authority. Submitting to an authority is praying. This type of joining hands to profess loyalty is still evident in the liturgy of ordination. A bishop will clasp the hands of the priest he is ordaining and say, "Do you promise respect and show obedience to me and my successors?" And in the Hindu tradition, it literally translates to a sealed offering. Oh dear. So more sacrifice, more bindings, and offering stuff no matter what. So is it pray or praying on you? Whilst you bow to subservience to the self-appointed gods or their earth-based priest class known as Cohens, holding hands out like a shackled prisoner, promising respect and obedience is all very indicative to me, but lost on the many billions who perform this binding ritual on a daily basis. Now, people may disagree with those points made, and many will do. But the question to be asked is, why does God shackle his creation and make them subservient? And then they tell you that you have to go into a church to be preyed upon and shackled as a subservient. Definition of a church? A church was used for any particular Christian denomination agreeing on doctrine and forms of worship. Doctrine. A doctrine. The notion is whatever is taught or laid down as true by a master or instructor. Since when has God been described in those terms? A master or instructor? They are power-laden words. Is God or Source power mad? Clearly not. But these books and orders were not written by God or Source at all, but by self-appointed control freaks perpetuating all kinds of horrors on the people. And there are several references of submission in the Bible, or is it Bible? And here is one of them. And if you're a radical feminist, you may want to close your ears to this next piece, because it may cause you to have an aneurysm, or use my MeWe GIF. Ephesians 5:22 through 33. Wives, submit to your own husbands as to the Lord, for the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, his body, and is himself its Saviour. Now, as the church submits to Christ, also wives should submit in everything to their husbands. Husbands, love your wives, as Christ loved the church, no he didn't, and gave himself up for her, that he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of the water with the word. But Lord, can you imagine the political correctness brigade with that statement nowadays? There would be outrage if Trump or any other male said that now. So why was it acceptable that back then? And why would God wish to make women second-class citizens? And then we come to the word Lord. To lord all over you. And another word that has a controlling connotation. But a lord is below the royals. So the king or queen and their immediate family, then a viscount, then the archbishop, and then comes the lord. A lord is always below the king. So how can the Lord in the Bible be interpreted as God? No, Lord, we never misunderstood you, just underestimated your ability to fool so many with your dark antics. And this next piece covers much of what was stated in 8a and b, and based on my research knowledge, but this is written by someone who actually took part in the skullduggery. This is called the illusion of Indian, Jewish and Tibetan worshipping. Now, the abuse and rottenness of Tibetan Buddhism is system-wide and rooted deeply. Tibetan Buddhism, which is Lamaism, is a mind control cult and essentially a sociopathic religion. The abuse and rottenness is system-wide, deeply rooted in the sacerdotal Tibetan Lamaism, which long ago incorporated aspects of Bon, the indigenous animistic shamanic religion of the region of Tibet, Buddhism, Hinduism, ritual magic, black magic, sorcery and witchcraft. Lamas of all lineages have engaged in this abusive behaviour. Now, this blog that this person wrote debunks the victim blaming, including self-blame, guilt and shame of the women and men who are revealing the mental, physical, sexual and spiritual abuse they suffered at the hands of Tibetan lamas, and the abuse is so systemic that some even call it cultic brainwashing from a sociopathic religion. Many more people, mostly women, are now coming forth about the abuse they have experienced for decades, sometimes by the Tibetan lamas who are their teachers. Mental, physical and sexual abuse and even rape of the vulnerable of those who trusted these men. The Tibetan lamas, Sogyal Rinpoche, Sakyong Mifam, are only the most well known, but there are so many more that have not yet been exposed. Kalu Rinpoche, who started this particular group, died in 1989 and is being run by a guy said to be his reincarnation under the same name. People fall for this shit. Unreal. Who subsequently was convicted of rape in 1994, but settled out of court with substantial damages. How is a charge of that severity allowed to be settled privately, you may ask? Well, history shows us some so-called higher-ups are involved in this group is why. But the floodgates have burst open and the truth is now being told. More and more abusive lamas are being named and the victims are now being believed. Previously, those few women brave enough to tell their stories were mocked, shamed and had their lives threatened, were accused of having weak minds, misunderstanding the higher teachings and even of being insane. This is like double trauma. Having not only suffered the original abuse trauma, they then run the gauntlet of people calling them liars and burdening them with further traumas. But the lamas have circled the wagons and they have had their lackey Western students giving teachings, Pima Chodron for one, and write books attacking the women. And again one must ask, why is this seen as holy, godly or saintly as they portray themselves? But then the same threats of violence using words were heavily prevalent in the scriptures, were they not? And mine eye shall not spare, neither will I have pity. I will recompense thee according to thy ways and thine abominations that are in the midst of thee, and ye shall know that I am the Lord that smiteth. Still there. Now the lamas very kindly explain to us the horrors awaiting those who turn against the teachers of breaking samaya. Samaya is a set of vows that bind you to the guru or disciple. So you can't break the samaya to the beloved self-proclaimed God King, who it is said only has the most compassionate, enlightened love for his students, but clearly not exhibited or followed. It's like the old saying, don't do as I do, just do as I say, springs to mind here. And these dissemblers proclaim loudly that anything and everything the men in crimson robes do is for the benefit of their students and as an extension for all sentient beings. Recent defences by Tibetan lamas of the criminal activity of Tibetan lamas include that they are above the laws of the country, which have altruistically taken them in, and even if they commit murder, they should not pay the consequences in courts of law. Now, where have we heard that before? Above the law. They are chosen, and they are subsequently untouchable in the eyes of God. Yes, the Talmud again, which is exactly what all these fake religions and fake spirituality-based cults are based upon. Remember the quote from the Talmud? If a non-Jew kills a Jew, the non-Jew can be killed. Punching an Israelite is akin to assaulting God, but killing a non-Jew is not like assaulting God. If a Goy killed a Goy or a Jew, he is responsible, but if a Jew killed a Goy, he's not responsible. It's the same program. Samaya is supposed bond of loyalty, that bond and binding again, and the key tenet of Tibetan Lamaism, and students are taught that breaking Samaya with your teacher will subject them to lifetimes of horrific torture in the hell realm. Oh my. With no hope of ever attaining rebirth in a higher realm. The classic Roman Catholic statement of you will burn in the fires of hell. Exactly the same. And a further example that all these institutions masquerading under God and religion are all interconnected once you connect the dots. I had experience of this personally, as my former wife was a Catholic but didn't go to church, and a group of nuns, nun is the modern term which derives from the term pagan priestess, go figure. Anyway, these nuns knocked on the door and told my wife if she didn't go to church she would burn in the fires of hell. Really? And why are these people held in such reverence? You know, when they're not sexually or mentally torturing or abusing children, they are threatening you with the devil. But what is it about those who wear the cloth that affords them such license, that they appear to get away with things that none of us would get away with in normal life? But these are ordained as messengers of God. Well, you can stick your God with messengers like them. And no, it's not just a few either. That is a myth and a conspiracy. It is rampant throughout all these religions and spirituality cults. Rampant. What would convince sensible Western men and women to take a vow of unbreakable loyalty to a Tibetan Lama, which is supposed to bind you forever to him or her, and agree to serve this person for all of their supposed billions of reincarnated lifetimes as a subservient student? But perhaps this quote from the Dalai Lama applies. He cautioned against rushing into commitment to a Lama. In Tibet, he says, it could take 12 years before a Lama-disciple relationship was established. And he points out that it is a big responsibility and should not be undertaken lightly by either party. Bound to somebody else? And that's enlightenment? But this is eerily similar to the fake shamans in North, Central and South America. Shamans with less than a year's training. And I'm not being funny here, but you don't train to be a shaman. You become a shaman. You can't judge a shaman by a paper-based or book-read exam. Whilst also accepting that the abuse they receive, physical, sexual, psychological and spiritual, is doled out to them by self-appointed God kings to help them, it is said, to reach enlightenment. But only after those billions of reincarnations. And that they should rejoice that they have this rare and precious opportunity to be horrifically abused by Tibetans. The truth is their false Buddhism has very little in common with the Buddhism of the Siddhartha Gautama. Buddha certainly didn't teach his followers to worship demons or god kings. In fact, idolatry and sacerdotalism was expressly condemned by Buddha. And that may have been the original Buddha's intentions, but 8a and 8b made it clear that the Buddha fell into the Order of the Black Sun. We gave many of the names that come under the umbrella of the Order of the Black Sun, and given the psychological torture and abuse endured by people in this cult, is it any surprise that the Dalai Lama is a CIA agent? The very group who delivered the MK Ultra mind control techniques on the world? Not really. Why do many victims who find the strength to leave accept the lie that they are to blame for the treatment they have received, but do not understand that it is the Vajrayana itself that is rotten? Many still embrace what they believe is Buddhism, which they learned from Tibetan teachings, and they do not denounce Tibetan Lamaism. They still accept the tenets and possibly still chant the mantras, oh my, and do the mind-bending rituals of the Vajrayana. Tibetan Lamaism is like an apple that looks beautiful, fresh and desirable, but is unexpectedly and forever rotten at the core. Vajrayana, Mantrayana, Tantrayana, Tantric Buddhism and Esoteric Buddhism are terms referring to the various Buddhist traditions. All are corrupt and not fit for the purpose. And Jnana is not an Asian term at all, but it is a Hebrew term. Well, I never. The person who wrote this goes on, why aren't people comfortable discussing the truth of what the Lamaists are doing to get their victims compliant? Techniques of mind control, flattery then shaming, thought and emotion projections. They use mind control and ritual magic, yes, magic, and it is in fact black magic, unbeknown to the author. Neither white or black magic are beneficial to us. But pragmatic Westerners, even after long years of practicing the rituals taught to them by the lamas, do not believe that the rituals actually do anything that impacts and changes matter in space and time. Instead, they believe that the rituals are intended for the individuals to develop their minds, cultivate compassion, meditate towards enlightenment, purify their karma, and joyfully serve holy men. This is what the public is told also about the benefits of practicing Vajrayana Lamaism. While the stories are being reported worldwide now of the criminal activities of Sogyal Rinpoche, Sakyong Mifam, and a few others, very few people are attributing the abuse natures of these god kings to Vajrayana Buddhism itself. Sakyong, no surprise, means king. And the myth that these are a few bad apples who are corrupting the pure teachings of Tibetan Buddhism. But the problems in Lamaism are so much deeper than a few predatory men in crimson robes acting inappropriately. It is system-wide, rooted deeply in the sacerdotal Tibetan Lamaism, which long ago incorporated aspects of Bon, which is the animistic shamanic religion of the region of Tibet, that involves ritual magic, black magic, sorcery, and witchcraft. The author said, don't be fooled by their robes. I don't think our members will be. All those in robes are clowns, all of them, including in your courtrooms. They're representatives of high priest or priestesses, which is why they wear the robes. So don't be fooled by their robes and their deceptively gentle manner. Lamas of all lineages engage in this abusive behaviour, and it is a myth that the lamas are monks and therefore celibate. This is a useful tool for subterfuge, a deception that allows the public to disbelieve the truth that Tibetan lamas prey upon the women around them. And when this was reported, there was a cover-up underway to play this down. And according to recent tweets to and fro on the matter, a recent tweet by Sogyal Truth, there are reports of rape in multiple countries. Over 90% of reported rapes are unproven in the legal sense. Most rape goes unreported. That does not mean the rapes didn't happen. But Mary Finnegan, an author, former journalist and convent girl, seems to follow a list of Irish writers and journalists of covering up crimes by the church and state in Ireland, as Alan from Circle of White Light will attest to, as he has highlighted several of them in that country. Mary Finnegan says, be careful about rape accusations not proven. It is mostly consensual sex with coercion as factored in some instances. But how did Miss Finnegan know that these were consensual? And the group said, where you were witness to all the rapes you are claiming were consensual. Thousands of them. And then they were requesting evidence proving it. Kalu Rinpoche, Los Angeles, was raped repeatedly as a child by his teachers. 4 CDs. Confessions of Kalu Rinpoche, who as a child raped repeatedly by his teachers, was not consensual. Now, if Tibetan Lamas feel free to violate a young man in their charge, and it is common in monasteries, why do you believe that these Western women are willing participants? And it said, for those of you who are fortunate enough to leave Vajrayana Lamanism, and for those who are still ensnared but reading this, and for the general public who attended some empowerments, what do you think you are participating in? And they asked the question, how did the chanting of millions of mantras, meditating for hours, days, months, years, visualizing complex dimensions replete with demons, sleep deprivation at events and retreats, participating in the many pujas, which are rituals, that are in a foreign language with warlike ritual items, the consuming of dootsie, stock, tormas and wine in skullcaps, human and otherwise. Change your brain, change your belief systems, make you do things you later realize were immoral and unethical and believe they're lies. The consumables, dootsie, tzatzok, torma, hand-shaped buckwheat meal offerings, milk tea, can be made of many things and are. Dootsie, D-U-T-S-I, are sometimes made with the spittle, urine or feces of highly realized beings as blessings for those consuming them. Oh my. This is exactly the same or similar substances at the ceremony, remember. And here is a reminder of that ceremony. According to the Tantras of Chakravarti and Tantras of the Vajravahi, a ceremony needs to be held for melting and blessing the inner offering nectar. And the 5 nectar needs to be arranged in 4 directions. Yellow excrement in the east, green bone marrow in the north, white semen in the west, and red blood in the south. Blue urine is placed in the centre. And in the second phase of the ceremony, various animal parts were placed, and the meat of a corpse from a red human. Still think it's spiritual and enlightenment? Resembles my MeWe GIF, that lot. Now the author said it is also very possible these items included psychotropic drugs as well. Tibetan medicine, herbal pharmacology has a history of more than 2,500 years and is distinct from traditional Chinese medicine. The herbal pharmacology of Tibet, as in China, has always included poisonous plants as the toxins in these plants were found to have pain-relieving and healing properties. But these same poisons were also used by the Tibetan clergy to get rid of political and spiritual foes. Now, the shamans of early Tibet were of the Bon tradition, and they mixed Bon shamanic ritual with medicine to heal people. Those Bon shamans and the later Lamaist clergy also became proficient in Tibetan ethnobotany and knew all of the toxic effects on the brain and body of the poisonous plants, of how much of each poison would result in short-term afflictions, long-term afflictions, and death. The untimely deaths of the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th Dalai Lamas are widely attributed to poisoning. A disgruntled regent of the 13th Dalai Lama, Norbu Tsering, was said to have enlisted the sorcerer Nyagtral in an attempt to assassinate this Dalai Lama. That's a fairly revealing and harrowing story, and has all the hallmarks, in my opinion, of intrusion and interference from a hidden element. In 8b we've heard of the Order of the Black Sun and their various named subsidiaries involved in it, whether knowingly or not. And remember, this group is behind the enemy lines per se, and the curtain of communism and the Chinese. And just like the musicians who are able to enter countries not exactly on the friendly list, it is safe to presume that these so-called spiritualists were trained with a specific reason to infiltrate that country for espionage and subversion practices, and it is a global issue. We highlighted a document that was released from the FBI about a group called the Finders, and a link to issues at the McMartin School from the late 1980s and early 1990s investigation. The Finders were a similar group that wished to be away from society and live their own lifestyle, similar to these religious and spiritual cultures, only to find that the CIA was a front for this Finders group. And the fact that the whole document and various departments went to so many great lengths to deny the CIA's involvement, despite them admitting they were a part of it, suggests the initial allegation that it was a CIA front group was correct in its original form. Children involved, mind control involved, psychedelic drugs involved, devious practices, forced coercion were all involved in Tibet practices, and also the Finders group. Now throw in the fact that the Dalai Lama is a CIA asset, and it all becomes crystal clear and confirms much of what was revealed in From Russia with Love 7. Are you connecting the dots more now? Perhaps this next section will bring more confirmations. They sure are. Thought and emotion projection for manipulation is real, is the next topic. And it's no longer in the realm of science fiction, fantasy or imagination. Influencing others through thought and emotion projection has been confirmed now by scientists and physicists. And Niels Bohr of the University of Copenhagen and a Nobel Prize winner confirmed that matter is like a beam of light. Physicist Louis de Broglie, another Nobel Prize winner and author of the de Broglie hypothesis, demonstrated that all matter is electromagnetic fields. Wave of energy, thoughts and emotions are waves of electromagnetic energy, and when directed at a target, a person or persons to control, are effective ways to manipulate and control vulnerable minds. Then you add in the hypnotic music played live during the rituals, the chanting of thousands of mantras in a foreign language, meditation quieting the mind led by the lamas, heavy smoke from incense, and sleep deprivation in longer ceremonies and also retreats, and it's no wonder people become brainwashed. It is not about the Westerners consenting to what the lamas want from them and then later regretting their actions and claiming they were victimized. Those who understand mind control cults will see exactly why these people get ensnared and do things that in their right minds they would never consider doing. And although many people will struggle to understand this, we are targeted by these lamas as we are seen as resources. And they use mind control techniques to get what they want from us. They pacify us and then subjugate us and keep us or discard us at their whim. Furthermore, they do their Lamaist rituals that send their dark intentions into time and space to harm those they perceive as their enemies. Students who have left, fellow Lamas, politicians, academics, in fact anyone and everything they claim are Dharma destroyers. And in case you're not familiar, what I've just described is some of the tactics of the MK Ultra training, done globally at various hidden CIA, P2 Lodge, Mossad, KGB and other agency-related front offices. Never allow yourself to think that you will not be a target. All are targeted with a form of MK Ultra in its varying forms in one way or another. And remember, the militaries have had control of the telecommunications and subsequent frequencies since the 1934 Act. Look what sonar frequencies does to the whales and dolphins. Look what they did to the music frequencies. It's all there once you connect the dots. So what do the Lamaists want? Well, hidden beneath their message of compassion, altruism, world peace and working for the benefit of all sentient beings is their overwhelming desire for money, sex, land and influence, and especially from women, because it is the Tantra sex that they crave on their twisted path to false enlightenment. Many Tibetan lamas are involved in Tantra sex with their female followers. Some lamas prefer underage girls, and Tantra, although from Hinduism, is the foundation of Tibetan Lamaism. How much money over the decades have Westerners donated, mostly cash, to the Tibetan lamas? Billions. And is suggestive of another of their laundering operations. Just like all the main charities, you're not given to the charity, you are funding humanity's downfall, as most of the funds to those charities line the pockets of these harvesters, which then allow them to run clandestine practices on people largely unhindered, as with cash, there's no real oversight. Throw in the fact that the CIA, Department of Homeland Security and NSA have all the security clearances higher than any government official. That means should an inquiry take place, the evidence has a higher security clearance than those who are requesting it. And so the National Security Act is invoked, and the legendary statement of "you don't have the need to know" is rolled out at a quite alarming rate. The reality of the four siddhis. What is the process the Lamaists use to accomplish their goals? Let's discuss the four siddhis of Tibetan Lamaism, shall we? Because Westerners are pragmatic, reasonable, compassionate, altruistic people, their thoughts and emotions must be manipulated in order to accept the twisted teachings of the false sociopathic religion of Tibetan Lamaism. The first lie to be believed is that Tibetan Lamaism is Buddhism. It's not. In fact, there is really very little in Lamaism that can be described as Buddhism. And the foundation of all Tibetan Buddhist rituals are the four siddhis, attainments, which are pacification for perceived enemies and to control their deities, subjugation for perceived enemies, deities and hungry ghosts, increase for their powers and reach, and wrath, destruction and death. The four attainments. These siddhis have outer, inner, secret, hidden, buried, concealed, and most secret aspects to them, and all Vajrayana mantras have seed syllables, and each syllable has its own signature, colour, sound, element and function. Om, white, element, pacifying, pituitary gland. R, red, fire, subjugating. Hung, black and blue, water, wrath. Ma, green, action. Ni, yellow, earth, increase. And when the syllables are chanted, these sounds create the energy and function to manifest in the physical realm for the intended outcomes. And the seeds of the seed syllables are intended to take root where they are sent. Mantras can be short, 3 syllables, or very long, involving hundreds of syllables. Chanting is brain entrainment. Repeated creates a memory frequency within the brain, which they can use to trigger you, just like the Manchurian Candidate. It's enchantment, which is magic. Enchant means enchant, and ment means mind. So it's chant in the mind. And that is MK Ultra practices, folks. All for their entertainment. Remove the letters ET from entertainment and it leaves entrainment. Coincidence? And pacification is the action of reducing to a submissive state, Subjugation is the action of bringing someone or something under domination or control. Increases to become progressively greater, as in size, amount, number, or intensity, and wrath is the destruction of all that the Lamaists consider threatening to them. And again, I must ask the question, as it appears too few comprehend, what they are saying or meaning when it comes to any religious or spiritual concept. Common sense predominantly just doesn't apply in these fields. More like no sense. By reducing people to submissive state, bringing someone under domination and control, increasing the numbers game, which is external and unbalanced ego and wrath. Do they sound remotely like enlightening terms? Do they sound godly? Do people not understand what being spiritual means? It appears not following those directives. But let's look at another of the Indian terminology, shall we, as I believe these practices are keeping humanity in a repeated cycle, just like the loops. We are supposed to go through certain ages or epochs of time whereby things change, and the Indians call it the yugas. And yet there is clear evidence we are stuck in the one yugi, which is the Kali yugi, and the obvious connection to the Dark Mother known as the Kali Ma. The Kali Yuga is ending and the Dwapara Yuga is beginning, they say, but it should have ended years ago. Each Yuga has certain characteristic traits. The Kali Yuga most common attributes and consequences are spiritual bankruptcy, mindless hedonism, breakdown of all social structure, greed and materialism, unrestricted egotism, afflictions and maladies of body and mind. Oops. I don't think I need to point out to anyone listening to this that it appears we've been stuck in that yuga a very long time. And one must ask the question, is chanting mantras and using mandalas, of which we have no idea what their hidden meaning is, keeping us entrapped in the Kali Yuga? Now, one of the great gifts of spiritual knowledge is that it realigns your sense of self to something you may not have even ever imagined was within you, like all life, the cosmos and way beyond. Spirituality says that even if you think you're limited and small, it simply isn't so. You're greater and more powerful than you have ever imagined, and a great and divine light exists inside of you. This same light is also in everyone you know, and in everyone you will ever know in the future. You may think you're limited to just your physical body and state of affairs, including your gender, race, family, job, and status in life. But spirituality comes in and says, there is more than this. It is attaining a deeper level of understanding of you and your role in the dance of life that goes way beyond external or materialistic ideals. It's about tuning in to the harmonic music of life, the eternal bliss, and the all-encompassing source, and knowing that you or a spark of it. It is the frequency. Now, the control of a student or a target for these Lamaists starts from the very first meeting. Thought projection, the smile. Certain smiles are mind control techniques. Handshakes are also used to manipulate the target. Very Freemasonic, that. Presumed intimacy, making the subject feel special and above the rest of the Sangha, which means a group of students, and above the unenlightened public. And the essence of a Sangha is awareness, understanding, acceptance, harmony and love, but those chants, mantras, clearly do not represent any of those values. Being told that finding Vajrayana Buddhism and studying under a Tibetan Lama is a rare and special privilege, so you have the good karma necessary for this. You must have been their student in a previous life. The classic seducement program again. You are special, you are chosen, or the chosen one, requested by some God or Lord, is an all too familiar program. And it is a pattern that repeats throughout all walks of life, and all too many fall for it, often repeatedly, which is why they keep using it, as clearly it works. Now bear in mind, these Eastern cultures, like the Hebrew culture, all dispel their karma onto the rest of the public via their Day of Atonement ceremonies. And perhaps a useful exercise during your time in meditation, you state clearly, I do not consent to receiving the karma of others. That is a revocation statement. The Lamaists use cognitive dissonance very professionally after praise and attention. A carefully constructed negative remark made by the Lama, and the students go into a panic. What did I do wrong? What did I say wrong? I must examine myself, my thoughts, my actions, my words. Everything I've done must have been wrong. If my Lama criticised me. But he only has my highest good in his mind at all times, so I must be at fault. This is the bait and switch tactic, the fear program also, based on an assumption that because they are lamas, shamans, priests, etc., they are higher or better than you. Said who exactly? Because they're not. And this is a prevalent problem of assuming because people have a title or noble position, they are automatically in some way better or above us, and that you have to prove yourselves worthy. No, it's the reverse actually. It is they who have to prove themselves worthy of trust, respect or admiration. Remember, they are in so-called higher positions, and with that should come more responsibility, more morals, higher values and behavioural traits. Those have to be shown and earned for a so-called disciple to elevate them above their perceived status. And they said we are debunking all the Tibetan Lamas and Lamaism. How many people have said, I have important work to do with the Tibetans? How many people have heard others say this? It's a thought projection by a Lama or someone being used by the Lamas to influence others. I would ask you to examine very carefully your thoughts, beliefs and opinions. Are they truly yours, or were they planted in your mind from external sources? The Blavatsky, Steiner, Crowley, along with these Eastern culture practices and many others in the New Age program, has much to answer for. They took advantage of human traits of wanting to develop themselves and a desire to be part of something bigger, and twisted it into an insidious program that trapped and damaged so many. Enlightenment is a self-based program. That means just you. You do not need internet snake oil salesmen or women, or to go to expensive conferences and buy their books and CDs. You just need you and a quiet room or space, nothing more and nothing less. And you are forgetting, you are the enlightenment. You. Next topic, chapter, Indian mysticism, Buddhism and Tibet practices linked with the Vatican. Now, we heard before of the practice of Vajrayana, and Yana is a separate word as noted here. The Paramveer Chakra, India's highest wartime military decoration, has a motive of Vajra, the mythic weapon of Indra, created by the bones donated by the sage Dadhishi as tribute to his sacrifice. That same terminology again, riddled through Asian and Middle Eastern culture. But does anyone ask why we have to keep sacrificing people? Now, having stated earlier that Yana is of Hebrew origin and means God is great, all very similar to Allahu Akbar, is it not? And another example of the connectivity of Eastern and Middle Eastern religious practices of all having a single origin. It is an illusion they are separate or independent of each other. Incidentally, Aloha is eerily similar phonetically to the name of Anu's father. Now, Indra is described as using the Vajra to kill sinners and ignorant persons. They needed to forge this weapon and requested help from Shiva and Brahma, and neither could deliver it and required the help of Vishnu. Now, Vishnu revealed to Indra that only the weapon made from the bones of Dadhishi would defeat Varitra, Indra and other Deva, and therefore approached the sage, whom Indra had once beheaded. Oh dear. And asked him for his aid in defeating Varitra. Yeah. I'll just chop off your head and stitch it back on and ask for your help. Psychopaths. Nice people, these gods and lords, aren't they? Beheading people who don't follow their orders, and people are worshipping these entities, and we wonder why our world is messed up. Now, Dadhishi, who complied with the request, probably mind-controlled, it is said that he sacrificed his life by the art of yoga, after which the god fashioned the Vajrayudha from his spine. Now, this weapon was then used to defeat the Asura, allowing Indra to reclaim his place as the king of Deva Loka. Now, the Deva Loka is a plane of existence where gods and devas exist. That and other planes will not last much longer. They are and were a trap. Another poor example of these gods and the narrative of my God is better than your God, is it not? Well, let's look closely at the word Vajra and see if we can find some connections. Vaj meaning, no, it's not that, stop giggling. Vaj meaning is strength, vigour, energy, speed, and so it's all about the power of Ra. Vajra means the power of Ra. So Dadichi sacrificed his life to yoga, did he? Yoga is derived from the root yuj, Y-U-J, to attach, join, harness, yoke. The word yoga is derived from the English word yoke, which is the practice of binding, there's that word again, two oxen together. Binding, like sacrifice, keeps popping up, and the term binding is just as prolific throughout this series. Testament and covenant are both terms meaning binding also. Now, as for yoga, it is also a dangerous practice for those without the full understanding and knowledge to carry out this practice. And no, your yoga expert will in 99.99% of cases will not have this knowledge. Yoga requires you to open up the portals within you, and without shielding first, this can bring in the spirit entities. Now, an oxen is an adult castrated bull and is linked with the papal bull, described as an edict, charter, decree or patent. Papal bulls have been in use since at least the 6th century, but the phrase was not used until around the end of the 13th century, and then only internally for unofficial administrative purposes. However, it had become official by the 15th century when one of the officers of the Apostolic Chancery was named the Register of Bulls, Registrum Bullorum. By the accession of Pope Leo IX in 1048, a clear distinction developed between the two classes of bulls of greater and less solemnity, and the majority of the great bulls now in existence are in the nature of confirmations of property or charters of protection that are accorded to monasteries and religious institutions. Protectors' rights again. In an epoch where there was much fabrication of such documents, those who procured bulls from Rome wished to ensure that the authenticity of their bull was above suspicion, and a papal confirmation under certain conditions could be pleaded as itself constituting sufficient evidence of title in cases where the original deed had been lost or destroyed. Oh my, fake documents. No authenticity, documents lost or destroyed. Sounds like a Langley or Congress investigation operation to me. And no, it's not a coincidence either. As this series has shown, it is all connected. Now, the official symbol of being the papal bull is shown now by the wearing of the ring. There we go again. Known as the ring of the fisherman. So we're back to the Dogon from Sirius again, and why they wear fish hats and the symbol of the fish. Like I said, it's said to be about Jesus. It's not. But having just mentioned the ox, let us not forget the Vatican Church recently and their confirmation of this by installing the statue of Moloch in their grounds. Moloch worship involves the sacrifice of innocent children in order to fulfill the good of the community, as is said. And the good of community is always expressed in merely material goods: better crop yields, greater pleasures, more wealth. So you slaughter children for more wealth, greater pleasures and crop yields, do you? Now the Moloch worshipper does not see the children as human sacrifice, but as a slaughter of an ox. So they're blind as well as stupid. That's mind control again. Isn't it like what we described on Sunday, where those doing the electric shocks had passed off their responsibility to the trainer? It's the same thing. Moloch is not God, but a demonic genie that grants you desires at the cost of your innocence. And since at least the Middle Ages, it has been a tradition for Catholics meeting the Pope to show their devotion by kissing the ring. One has to ask the question as to which particular ring piece are they kissing? His ass? Now the Dogon were half man, half fish, described as floating above the ground in a flying formation, kind of resembles the description of angels, does it not? Are they angels or angles? What does a fisherman do? They angle. The bull also has another connection which synthesized the spiritual and secular crimes of witchcraft, and is often viewed as opening the door for the witch hunts of the early modern period. Dalai means ocean, Lama means priest, ocean priest. Now where have we heard that before? The Holy See. And then remember that all humans are declared dead in the sea after 7 years. We're back to the figure 7 mentioned earlier. I repeated a piece recently with an analogy surrounding humanity coming out of the sea and onto the land. And maybe that makes more symbolic sense now. Described as humanity's own personal landing on the Dunkirk beach. But then you find out that that also has not only a symbolic meaning, but sinister connotations also. Dunkirk, meaning is sand church. Dun is June, Kirk is church. So they landed out of the church of the sea onto the church of the sand, and essentially their version of placing humanity in quicksand. And this is how these people think in their occultist ways, aligned with dates and numerology. Now the majority of the German stronghold in France at that time was further south in Calais, which is actually nearer to the UK than Dunkirk. But this, in my opinion, was not some random landing, but a symbolic statement that the church was now taking over the land as well as the sea, whilst placing people with their head in the sand. And knowing how these people think and operate, Dunkirk was specifically chosen for that particular battle of World War II, not because of strategic war operation, but because of the name, as the birth certificates all held, courtesy of the fact of humanity being lost at sea, came on land and birthed, spelt B-E-R-T-H. What is the closest main town or city to Dunkirk? Brussels, now the home of the birth certificates and resides in the system known as ANA. But it doesn't end there. The Romans had a female deity called Anna, known as Anna Perenna, who was an old Roman deity of the circle or ring of the year. Yet again, another reference to the ring. It is the origin of the word per annum, and also the origin of the word perennial. And the festival to her falls on the Ides of March, March 15, which would have marked the first full moon in the year in the old lunar Roman calendar, when March was reckoned as the first month of the year, and it was held at the grove of the goddess. More Roman fear porn, with the saying, "Beware the Ides of March." And perhaps this will explain why. That offerings were made to her, so that the circle of the year may be completed happily, and that people sacrifice to her, both publicly and private. Yet again, a god or goddess mired in sacrifice. The ring mentioned again, yet again bringing fear on the people, and yet again connected to Lilith, the Kalimar, and the moon cycle. But this piece intrigued me, that offerings were made to her, so that the circle of the year may be completed happily. And this smacks heavily to me of a circle ritual, and so was coven-based. Statement, and listen closely. There is no organised light practices currently operating on this planet. Every one of them were twisted dark, and it is important to understand and grasp that. We have to create new again, starting off with the full background of hidden knowledge, and only then can we create new. But all the old light practices are now trapped due to a chronic lack of real knowledge. We have to create our own mystery schools, not based on their corrupted versions. The next chapter is the Hebrew connection. The Jewish people are the only religion that are taught not to believe in jinns, ghosts, or spirits, describing it as purely superstition. But that ignorance is how so many from that religious background fell, and how they became corrupted. It could also have been one giant ploy used also, whereby the leaders were familiar with the jinns and spirits, but wanted it to keep it to themselves, so only they can use their dark and magic intentions. It is not too clear, but certainly worth considering. But perhaps this next caption will make things clearer. The very phrase brings to mind images of priests pronouncing in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The Christian triune God, composed of the God, the Father, Jesus the Son, and the mysterious entity known as the Holy Spirit, or more more archaically known as the Holy Ghost, would seem to be as far as one can go from Jewish theology. While a Trinity only became official Christian creed in the 4th century, this was a time when Christianity was still a variant form of 1st century Judaism. And the Holy Spirit was already a frequent actor in the New Testament. Oops. Christianity was a variant form of Judaism. They're all one and the same. Now, in the Gospel according to Matthew, a curiously sounding British name for one residing in the Middle East, but I digress. One reads that Mary conceived her child by the Holy Spirit, and that is one idea not found in Judaism. So let's get this down to basic terms of what they're saying here, shall we? Mary was shagged by a ghost and got pregnant. Really? Are we expected to believe that nonsense? Then others say that the Holy Spirit or ghost is the mother. So are they saying that 2 females produced the offspring that became the Son of God? Oh dear. Now, for the early Christians, the Holy Spirit was presented as an, quote, active agent, bestowing God's gifts, defending the people. And eventually Christianity began to assert itself as the new covenant, the religion of the Spirit, in opposition to Judaism and the religion of law. Oh dear. The religion of law, which is legalese, which is Latin, which is the language of the Draconians. Now, this next piece comes from research from one of our members and ties in and connects more dots. In 1666, I-666, which is the same year as the Seswi KV Act. Coincidence? The Rabbi Sabbatai Zevi, who we covered earlier in the series, declared himself to be the Messiah. Self-appointed titles of importance again. And he said that the Talmud said that sin was the only way to salvation. But remember, they love to play on words, the double and even triple meanings. And when you understand the original meaning of sin was knowledge, then things may become clearer to you. The God of knowledge is called sin. So the Talmud statement is actually correct, but sin is reflected to Lucifer. Or Luciferia. But they are using it in a reverse psychology way. Sin is bad and evil, we are told. Like the Catholic Church in the confession booth. Come in the confession booth and reveal your sins, which actually means reveal your knowledge. In my opinion, all the Catholic priests and nuns need to spend the rest of their lives in a confession booth. So the confession booth is just a glorified spying or gossiping outpost. Now remember the story in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve, which is actually Lilith, were banned from eating the fruit from the tree of knowledge and called it a sin, which we are led to believe is something bad or evil, when sin means the knowledge. Why would the so-called God deny his children knowledge? Now, living in the Ottoman Empire, it was said that he was forced to convert, or was it just a clever infiltration ploy so prevalent at that time? This is the Zabbatai Zevi again. And he then converted from Jew to Muslim, called a Donmei. But secretly he still operated as a Jew. Now the Donmei infiltrated the Muslim community, and the original spelling of the word, like most else in religious circles, has changed from Moslem to Muslim. Now the meaning of Muslim, which is an Arabic word, is submitter. And so, like all other religions, it means subservient. So in essence, a Muslim is subservient to the Talmud. Oops. Islam means Isis the hidden goddess. Isis Ra El. Isis and Ra are gods, that means. Swiss is the twin sisters, and is, and so Isis again. Now the Donmei are stated to have had a great dislike for the Jewish people. The usurpers, as they believe, that Adam, Noah, Abraham, Ishmael, Jacob, Moses and Jesus and his apostles are all considered to be Muslims in the Quran. No, most of those names were Draco, the scaly-skinned. And these Donmei later became the royal Saudi family, another of the houses, this time the House of Saud. And this family, together with the British Empire run by the Rothschilds, created Wahhabism, which is a Sabbatean cult and nothing to do with Muslim. Wahhabism is the background and the front to the group known as ISIS, that goddess again, but is also an acronym for Israeli Security Intelligence Services. Oh my, the coincidences, and why it changed to ISIL and now to just IS. It is my understanding also that the last male parent, known as the prince, was ensconced within this Saud family. Jacob Frank took this evil to an even higher level. Frankists infiltrated the Roman Catholic Church and later all religions' leaderships. 1776, Illuminati, another of their word magic mirrors, as it spells the same backwards in the mirror, but in reverse it spells Aitan I Muli. If you add .com to Aitan I Muli, it brings up the NSA website. What are the chances of that not being connected? In witchcraft and demonology, spells are cast by means of magic mirrors, which are believed to be the entrance to the other dimensions. And remember, cast is also another fishing term we mentioned earlier. Through the looking glass is more than simply symbolic, and the Kabbalah mystery religions teach that Lilith enters into this world via mirrored walls, which are the entrance to her cave. The clown realm. Oh my. You didn't like circuses as a child or clowns, did you? Now you know why. And like I said in a recent show, a mirror is not one way. Once you grasp that, the world of illusion begins to dissipate. And on May the 1st, 1776, Sabbatean cult disciple Jacob Frank conspired with Adam Weishaupt and Amschel Rothschild. For those who don't know, it is not Washington on the American currency bills, it's actually Adam Weishaupt. Oops. And in a highly demonic ritual, the trio communicated with Father Lucifer, who revealed unto them the darkest priesthood the world had ever known. May the 1st, when people doth ridiculous clothing and all dance around like prats around the maypole we go, not realising it's another of their ritual days, and they go anti-clockwise like the ceremony at the Mecca. Anti-clockwise is harvesting. And another of their 9/11s, which is the emergency and warning number. But what about Mayday? Mayday, it is an emergency. Mayday, it is an emergency. A case of emerge and see. 3 words, not one. It is the day they emerge to see the light, given they believe they are the illuminated ones. Their version of light is darkness. Everything is backwards or mirrored. They emerge to see with their cyclopic eye, the eye of Horus, and also the eye of Ra. Same entity, same symbolism, same cult. In fact, the name Jesus is a representative of Horus. Oops. The Jewish Frankite cult named their organization the Illuminated Ones. Lucifer, the son of the morning, brings first light or enlightenment to the world. But the son of the morning is Venus and female, not male. The House of Rothschild controls much of the earth's wealth, or did. Their elitist organisation is called the Illuminati. In demonology, secret names have power interdimensionally when reversed or mirrored. Mirrors are also used in monarch mind control programming of MKUltra origin. Each of a mirror's broken shards represents a different alter or personality. Watch the movies Eyes Wide Shut for that in-your-face disclosure. And they are following the Kabbalah, especially the book of Zohar. They infiltrated politics, media, science, business, banking, entertainment, sports, everything. They are called the Hidden Hand. They created the state of Israel. They are part of the New World Order, the One World Government, with Jerusalem as its capital. Today they are called Satanists, and yet they are all of them children of Don-May. So who are these Don-May, and how have they influenced certain matters in various regions? There is historical 800-pound gorilla lurking in the background of almost every serious military and diplomatic incident involving Israel, Turkey, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Greece, Armenia, the Kurds, the Assyrians and some other players in the Middle East and Southeastern Europe. Although known to historians and religious experts, the centuries-old political and economic influence of a group known in Turkish as the Donme has only recently begun to cross the lips of Turks, Arabs and Israelis who have been reluctant to discuss the presence in Turkey. Elsewhere of a sect of Turks descended from a group of Sephardic Jews who were expelled from Spain during the Spanish Inquisition in the 16th and 17th centuries. Common theme that being expelled, 106 countries in 2,000 years. And remember, it was these Turkic peoples who were also part of the Genghis Khan or Genghis Khan cult in South Siberia and Mongolia that swept across that whole region and into Iran, the land of the Aryans. And interestingly enough, the group said to be under threat and attack in China are Turkic, called the Uyghurs. Now the Khazars were a nomad and later on semi-nomad Turk people that had originally settled in Central Asia. Khazar is translated with wanderer or wandering around. And these Jewish refugees from Spain were welcomed to settle in the Ottoman Empire, and over the years they converted to a mystical sect of Islam that eventually mixed Jewish Kabbalah and Islamic Sufi, which is the semi-mystical beliefs, into a sect that eventually championed secularism in the post-Ottoman Turkey. Now the Black Sufis, of course, was referenced in HB show as part of the Order of the Black Sun. But it is interesting to note that Donme not only refers to the Jewish untrustworthy converts to Islam in Turkey, but it's also a derogatory Turkish word for a transvestite, or someone who is claiming to be someone they are not. There's a deeper hidden meaning to that last statement. Many Donme, along with traditional Jews, became powerful political and business leaders in Salonika. It was this core group of Donme which organised the secret Young Turks, also known as the Committee of Union and Progress, and the secularists who deposed Ottoman Sultan Abdülhamid II in the 1908 revolution, proclaimed the post-Ottoman Republic of Turkey after World War I, and who instituted a campaign that stripped Turkey of much of its Islamic identity after the fall of the Ottomans. Abdülhamid II was vilified by the Young Turks as a tyrant, but his only real crime appears to have been to refuse to meet the Zionist leader Theodor Herzl during a visit to Constantinople, and also reject Zionist and Donme offers of money in return for the Zionists to be granted control of Jerusalem. Oops. Modern-day Turkey is run solely by the Donme, and as I understand it, although it's just as capable or likely it could be a double agent, Erdogan is fighting against this particular Donme group. but Erdogan is also linked to Langley. But it's a common theme to label certain leaders who will not bow down to these globalist parasites, to label them tyrants, despots, the Antichrist, in an effort to turn the public against them. And because so many will not think for themselves, they get away with it. Please learn to think for yourselves. We will make giant strides on fixing this world if the many begin to think for themselves. Like other leaders who have crossed the Zionists, Sultan Abdul Hamid II appeared to have sealed his fate with the Donmei with this statement to the Ottoman court: advised Dr. Herzl not to take any further steps in his project. I cannot give away even a handful of the soil of this land, for it is not my own. It belongs to the entire Islamic nation. The Islamic nation fought jihad for the sake of this land and had watered it with their blood. The Jews may keep their money and millions. If the Islamic Caliphate state is one day destroyed, then they will be able to take Palestine without a price. It was, and they did. He went on, but while I'm alive, I would rather push a sword into my body than see the land of Palestine cut and given away from the Islamic State. Palestine and all other countries does not belong to a religion. It belongs to the people. And if only all people understood that, the countless wars in the name of religion would cease. After his ouster by Ataturk's Young Turk Donmei in 1908, Abdul Hamid II was jailed in the Donmei citadel of Salonika. He died in Constantinople in 1918, 3 years after Ibn Saud agreed to a Jewish homeland in Palestine, and 1 year after Lord Balfour deeded Palestine away to the Zionists in his letter to Baron Rothschild. Ibn Saud fathered many children, including 45 sons, and something resembling 146 children. Does that make any sense? And all of the subsequent kings of Saudi Arabia come from them. And so they're a bit like the Rothschild family then, and also a common practice of the so-called gods. Now, during World War I, the British government established diplomatic relations with Ibn Saud, and the British agent who established diplomatic relations was called William Shakespeare. You can't make this stuff up. So whilst the fake Russian takeover was ongoing, there was another genocide taking place that rarely gets any coverage, right next to the Turkish border, and that of Armenia. Same people, same group who did it is why. And the Armenian Genocide was the systematic mass extermination and expulsion of 1.5 million ethnic Armenians within the Ottoman Empire, most of whom were citizens, by the Ottoman government from approximately 1914 to 1923. This was carried out by these same Zionists that did it to Russia. Same time period. And again, it's the same time period we covered in part 4 of this series. and we're still paying heavily for that time period of 1880 to 1925. And now we have uncovered, grasped and understood, I think it's time we go about fully correcting it. Right through this series I have said these Jews are fake and part of a program of death that has used the people now known as Jews as pawns in a giant game of death and destruction. And perhaps a reminder of this scripture piece says it best. Revelation 2.9. I know thy works and tribulations and poverty, but thou art rich, and I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. That completes the Mobius loop and the figure 8 of From Russia with Love. 9 brings the open-ended spiral and a completion to the series. But isn't it amazing, despite all the lies, deceptions and subversions, we're all still here and intact. And the key to all this series is history, or his story, has been a giant lie and a conspiracy of the highest magnitude. A conspiracy indeed. The cons of the piracy have fooled us left, right and centre, and only the unveiling of the hidden world and bringing it into the light, coupled with a willingness by many people to embrace our story, will greater clarity, hope and wisdom be garnered from it. Unlearning the lies is the first step. Processing it and releasing that old construct is the next stage. Armed with the new knowledge, which then has to be morphed into a new way or path. Repeating is pure folly and is destined to fail. This giant umbrella was a cancer on this planet that all but destroyed everything we hold sacred. The truth was stomped upon in giant waves, consciousness stripped away and left many devoid of it. The abilities to care, nurture and love desecrated in a plethora of self-serving greed that has created an abomination within society that will require much healing, teaching and trauma releasing going forward. This cancer was all designed to bring divide and conquer, and much blood spilt to play their illusion game. The spilling of blood has great consequences on this planet on a metaphysical level. But these fake gods and their many followers desired that blood spilt to collect for their harvesting. This show and previous was not a denigration of peoples, cultures, countries or religious or spiritual based peoples. It is highlighting that we've all been duped here on a massive scale and used as pawns in a chess game where most of the pieces were dark. I am genuinely sorry for the people who have followed religion. They have taken away from you, what you are, and a greater understanding of you and your role in the cosmic dance of life. But even the most ardent religious person should see from this series, all is not what you thought it was, or what you were mind controlled into thinking. A reminder of the transcript from 1948 between US government agencies and the ET from the crashed craft, as an understanding and a will to carry this statement out, will bring the much desired change on this planet, as praying to God to save us has clearly not worked. He said, just try to accept we are in paradise when we are seeing and understanding something new. Our God should be change. Our religion should be understanding. Searching for truth is our greatest social challenge and purpose. That's something we all need to grasp. People can react to this series and shout racism all they want, deny it or refuse to look at it, as it affects their life or lifestyles too much. But seeking the external has come at a great cost to us all on this planet. It has spilt much blood, caused great suffering and trauma, and that only begins to end when you accept facts and reality. Once you do that, a whole new world opens to you all, with untold riches, not in terms of pieces of paper with numbers on, but inner wealth, riches and abilities. This show was a warning for those seeking enlightenment on the external. Your enlightenment is internal and does not require paying fees to do so, or join some sycophantic religious or witchcraft-based cult group that are all designed to take all of your power away. There is no exceptions. Pray within, as external makes you the prey. All the isms. Ism equals is-M. Just like IBM. M being Marduk. We're all created to harvest your energy and power away from you. So you sought external help, gods and idols, when the love, the answers, the truth, and then the enlightenment were inside of you all along. You're all much more than you realise or comprehend once you get the external construct out of the way and go within. Far greater treasures of life await you than you can ever receive externally. The aura shine or beacon on the external of you is a reflection of your internal light. Use it wisely. I will walk not in front of you, but beside you. And we all walk the path together into the domain of the free. Freedom is a universal right, not an earth-based privilege. This has been the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. My name is Thomas Williams. Bye for now.